Hey guys, it's Dean. I don't think it's too far-fetched to claim that two of the largest video game fanbases that exist are those of Mario games and Sonic games. Some of the most vocal, passionate, biased, and nostalgia-driven video game critics of all time are seen across the board here. Generally speaking, you'll find gamers and reviewers talking about their favorite game in a series and compare it to another game in that same series. Or better yet, you'll find people just about fighting to the death to defend their favorite version of the same game versus its subsequent remaster or remake. It's a trope that's been done to death. Sonic 2 versus Sonic 3, Mario 3 versus Mario World, Mario 64 versus Mario 64 DS. And while I think there's plenty of value in comparing and contrasting games in those same series, there's not much more anyone could really bring forth to the conversation that hasn't really been said already. If I was to start a versus series from that angle, the only new thing I bring to the table is my personal opinion and my favorite game in each comparison. And I've seen reviewers and critics put in way more effort and still come away with absolutely angering a fanbase and a game they didn't select. And honestly, I'm not here to tell you why you should like Mario X or Sonic Y over Mario or Sonic Z. I'm not on YouTube so I can anger and aggravate the Sonic and Mario communities. It's beneath me. All of this is to say that rather than do what everyone's done, absolutely rile up a subset of these games' respective fanbases, I figure I could do better. I'd instead aim to anger all of you at the same time. And I'm going to do that by running through these two series together in a 1v1 comparison between these two staples of gaming history that I hold so dear to my heart. Now I know what you're thinking. This channel is called Nintending, so I'm clearly going to hold a bias towards Mario. And boy, you couldn't be more wrong. You see, I'm not like all other Nintendo fans that grew up playing Sonic on GameCube and claim that's why their opinion holds value. I didn't show up to the party after Sega collapsed and went third party. I was there in the 90s. I was a boy that grew up in a Nintendo household which suddenly found itself with a Sega Genesis. I remember being stoked to find out in Sonic 3 you could fly with tails from the kids in the playground. I remember when Super Mario All-Stars came out and thinking it was the pinnacle of gaming. I inherited my big brother's SNES at 6, and I remember being a 3-year-old watching all of my older siblings on the NES. I remember our launch N64, and I remember trading it in for our launch Dreamcast. I was there. I lived it, I breathed it, and I was on both sides of it. And I loved every second of it. There are some obvious points and ground rules I'd like to get out of the way before I begin. For starters, I'm fully aware of the gap in releases between some of these games I'm going to compare. Mario 1 came out a good amount of time before Sonic 1, so it'd almost be unfair to compare these two games. But looking back at it now, 30 years later for both series, I think we can neglect the gap between releases. Especially considering both franchises have had plenty of time to re-release the games and fix up any issues that would be a result of the times. There will be some instances where a game will be forgiven for limitations of that nature, but there will also be times where a game will be rewarded for not having those limitations set it back. Another thing to consider is while both of these series are for the most part platformer heavy, they still play very differently, and in a lot of cases, you might prefer a poor Sonic game over an excellent Mario game simply because you like the way Sonic moves over Mario or vice versa. I tend to enjoy both of these series equally though, so that won't be a factor in my decision making. Rather, I'll be discussing the control and feel of these titles. Next, and this is going to be a huge breaking point for both fanbases I bet, while I will discuss the music and sound of these games, it's going to be very hard for me to choose a winner of either of those categories while going through the series. So don't expect that to be a deciding factor in the video or any of the future ones. It's just way too hard to put these themes head to head as they're some of the most iconic in all of video gaming. I'll still touch up on the music and sound, but it won't hold as much weight as the other aspects of these comparisons, which honestly I think is fair. While sound and music is very important to gaming, at the end of the day you could still mute most games and complete them entirely. Whereas you couldn't exactly turn off your screen and just listen to a game. Or at least I think you can't. Because then you'd just be listening to music, I think. Anyway, I apologize in advance if you thought the Mario Bros theme would be the tiebreaker against Green Hill Zone's original soundtrack or whatever. In a similar fashion, the story won't really hold all that much value in these videos either. It could definitely help the game, but if it's a poor story I won't fault it too much strictly based on the story. Again, I may discuss them, but it won't be the reason a game loses in this versus series. This hardly matters at the moment since I'm just going through the 2D titles, but if I ever make it to Sonic Adventure versus Mario 64, it might be a talking point. And finally, just a reminder that I have a Patreon, and the more help you give me, the faster these videos come out. Without further ado, welcome to Mario vs Sonic Episode 1, Mario 1 vs Sonic 1. Super Mario Bros. Was largely considered to have saved the gaming industry upon its release. Prior to it, most video games were your generic single-screen arcade titles, especially on home consoles. The NES absolutely changed the world. It was largely because of Super Mario Bros., and everyone loved it. It had a hold on the entire industry, so there was no debate. If you played video games, you played Super Mario Bros. Mario is a household name worldwide, from boomers to Gen Z, and that's all thanks to the release of Super Mario Bros. Slightly less popular, though, was the release of Japan's Super Mario Bros. 2, which in the West is known as the Lost Levels, largely because it was deemed too difficult a game to release to the West. And honestly, it was probably the right call, because when it was eventually brought to the West on Game Boy and packaged in with Super Mario All-Stars, it was underplayed and underappreciated with good reason. In fact, it's probably more appreciated today in a world of streamers and post-Mario Maker experts than it was back then. In the West, Lost Levels has always been tied to Super Mario Bros. You actually can't purchase the game individually, so that's why I'm looping it in together with this video. Both games have seen a ton of re-releases throughout the years, but they're basically just emulated ports. There are ultimately 3 versions of the games in my recollection that matter. The original NES releases, with Mario 2 being Japanese exclusive. The Super Mario All-Stars versions, which took the games up to 16-bit standards and added some proper quality of life fixes like saves and whatnot. And the Game Boy Color Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, which took the journey to handheld and added a fun collection mode. The original NES versions are more than viable ways to experience these games, and I'd understand why most people would prefer those, but for me, it's gotta be the All-Stars version. It just looks and sounds so much better, and having a save feature makes all of the difference. The deluxe version having the extra game mode forces you to explore and find red coins and a Yoshi egg in each stage. It's super cool, but the screen crunch and use of the NES art style really limits that version in my opinion. My ideal way to experience Mario 1 and Lost Levels would be with the Super Mario All-Stars, but with the bonus collectibles from Deluxe. But alas, that was never made, so these bonuses from Super Mario Bros. Deluxe will be forgotten going forward. My earliest memory of Super Mario Bros. 1 was watching my sisters play it in what was probably 1991 or 1992 on the NES. The All-Stars version I remember a little better, but all that usually sticks out to me in my memories is the peck on the cheek Peach gives you at the end of the game. Beyond that, I don't think I played too much of Mario 1 after the N64 came out, until it was released on the Wii where I started speedrunning the game with the Wiimote. It was loads of fun, but could only keep me entertained for so long. About 4 years ago, I decided to run through all the Mario games and ended up playing All-Stars version of both Mario 1 and Lost Levels to full completion, albeit with using the rewind feature during Lost Levels. Finally, the next time I played these games was a few weeks ago for this review, and honestly, I didn't even fully play through the Lost Levels this time because I didn't have the patience for it, and I didn't really want to emulate it with the rewind feature again for the sake of this review. I don't believe playing it again would change my opinion of the game anyway. Regardless, that was my experience with Super Mario Bros. 1 and the Lost Levels. Jumping to the blue side of things, I have significantly less memories with Sonic 1. I'm 99% sure that I never actually played it on Sega Genesis. I vividly remember having Sonic 2 and 3 and Knuckles on my tiny Sega Genesis 3, but I don't recall ever grabbing Sonic 1, and I know exactly why. When Sonic 1 was released, Sega was trying to get its head in the game. They literally were trying to find a mascot to combat Nintendo's Mario. Someone faster, more hip, and all around cooler to push children that were playing with Mario at 6 to jump to Sonic at 12. A great marketing push that literally put a dent into Nintendo's success in the early 90s, something thought to be impossible. And my god, what a dent. I'm a child of the 90s. Well, sort of. I was literally born in 1990, so the first 2 or 3 years are a little blurry to me. My older siblings had an NES and an SNES by the time I could hold a controller. We were very much a Nintendo family, and heck, we still are. But at the time, in elementary schools in the mid-90s, Sonic had won the playgrounds. If you liked Mario, you were made fun of, you were laughed at, you were considered a baby. And while I never understood it at the time, that was Sega's plan all along. We had to get a Sega Genesis. I couldn't show my face in school if I didn't play Sonic, so we got one. My memory is a bit blurry, but I think I traded my Super Nintendo with my neighbor's Sega Genesis around 1st or 2nd grade. And goodness, I loved every second of that Genesis. The reality though is I don't really even know anybody that had Sonic 1. Everyone always had Sonic 2 and most people had 3 and possibly Knuckles as well. I could be wrong, but I remember most Sega Geneses, or whatever the plural is, were sold bundled with Sonic 2 by the time I was 4 or 5 years old. So maybe it was just my generational experience, but Sonic 1 was the least popular of the Genesis classics. I mean, it's entirely possible we had the game but didn't play it because the other 2 were better. I'm not sure. All I know is I didn't experience Sonic 1 fully until I played it on Android back in 2017. I was a bit late to the party, yeah, but I remember absolutely loving the game. Granted, it had been the first Sonic game I had played in years, but those Android re-releases really helped to re-spark my love and interest in video games in general. At the time, I wasn't even really that big into listening to all the video game channels, so it wasn't until after playing this game that I came across reviews from people like EXO and Some Call Me Johnny and Ant Dude and all the rest of them. I had a fairly pure experience with the Android port of Sonic 1, and I loved every second of it. Probably didn't even realize the spin dash was only added in that release. But thank God it was, because I can't imagine a classic Sonic game without the spin dash. Back in 2017, I played the game using the touch controls, and I thought that was more than viable enough to get through the game. I still think they are, but this time around I played the game on TV with a controller, and it just feels so much better than using the touchscreen. This is definitely the definitive way to experience the classic Sonic games, and I'm glad it's going to be easily accessible when Sonic Origins comes out. With the background and experience of these titles out of the way, I think we can start straight with the reviews. As I mentioned earlier, Super Mario All-Stars completely slapped a fresh coat of paint on Mario 1 and Lost Levels. The games look so much nicer on the Super Nintendo than they ever did on the NES. The NES almost had a muddied look to it that I didn't realize until I got older. But the SNES? Man, there's a reason people are still developing new games with this art style from the 16-bit era. That being said, the game does feature a bunch of repeated themes. There are really only a handful of aesthetics and backgrounds used in these games, which obviously is a limitation of the time, but still isn't too offensive while experiencing the game. The game overall has a bright and cheery tone, and as a result, when you get to the stages that take place during the night, or go underground, or go to a Bowser stage, you really feel a tone shift based off the aesthetics. It's an okay art style, but not even remotely close to the best in the series. Sonic, on the other hand, has a more nuanced art style. Comparing it side by side to Mario 1, you can see a team that honestly put much more effort into making each zone stick out as its own theme. Green Hill Zone is absolutely stunning, but as has been said a million times before, it's probably the highlight of the entirety of Sonic 1. It's not all bad, but when you're halfway through the game and you're looking at a Starlight Zone, it's hard to be impressed. When it comes to the art styles, I think both games, while charming, are kind of underwhelming. With a gun to my head, I might pick Mario 1, but Sonic 1 sticking to a zone theme for all of its acts makes me appreciate it a lot more. And ooh boy, if I thought it was tough to pick a game from the comparison that sticks out because of the art styles, then I don't even think it's remotely possible to pick a standout winner in the music and sound category. I mean, if I went right now and played the sound of someone grabbing a coin in Mario, or a ring in Sonic, to any random person on the street, they'd immediately know which game that sound was from. Like I said earlier, these games have some of the most iconic and memorable melodies in all of gaming, or at least their main themes do. The rest of the soundtracks in both titles aren't quite as iconic, but they're still very recognizable. In Mario 1's case, a lot of the tracks are remixes or slight alterations. Sonic 1 has some fun music that many people don't seem to appreciate as much as I do. I mean, Labyrinth Zone is one of my all-time favorites. It's got this weird use of a string instrument, I think, with a catchy tune that you can almost use to sing along the lyrics with any random song you've heard. My name is Cleveland Brown, and I am proud to be right back in my hometown with my new... Oh, sorry, okay, sorry about that. It gets me every time. The point is, I actually love the music in Sonic 1, a lot more than most people do. But similar to the art style comparisons, it'd be way too hard for me to choose a clear winner in this category. But now I think it's time to actually discuss the aspects of the games that matter the most, and stop being politically correct. The game design. Starting with the levels, Mario 1 is broken down into 8 worlds of 4 levels, where the 4th level is always Bowser's Castle. 1-1 is your typical grassland introductory stage. Finish that and you go underground to 1-2 with a darker theme. You also might find the famous secret exit shortcuts that move across the game quicker, but let's be real, those were really only put into place because the game originally had no save feature. World 1-3 sees you back on the surface with a bit trickier platforming and bottomless pits, while finally 1-4 sees you face off against Bowser. The boss battles in this game are basically all the same. As you move along, Bowser will eventually start throwing hammers or might have a platform over his head to throw you off, but usually a good jump or a quick run underneath is all you need. World 2-2 introduces underwater themes and swimming gameplay, and 2-3 introduces you to these long bridges and Cheep Cheeps. World 3 ups the platforming a bit and gives those stages a night theme. And World 4 almost makes the game feel like it's starting over again, just a bit harder. But it's from Worlds 5 through 8 where the game actually begins. It's the point of the game where the designers know that if you made it this far, you want to be tested. Everything just starts becoming a lot harder. Bowser stages start to force you to solve riddles, albeit relatively simple ones, to advance. And somewhere through World 7, you'll probably freak the hell out because you got a game over and have to redo 7-1 and 7-2. The game actually has a really good difficulty curve in my opinion. There's something to be said about games that get frustratingly difficult near the end. I know there's a lot of people who tend to hate on these aspects of games, but honestly, as much as they frustrate me sometimes, the sense of accomplishment you get from a game that's so blatantly unfair when you reach the end is unlike any other rush you get in gaming. So overall, I like the way Super Mario Bros. 1 advances through the game. That being said, it does take a bunch of practice to figure out hitboxes, or the momentum of your jumps, or even the gaps that are small enough to run over while going through a stage. As a result, I think the fact that a game over takes you back to the beginning of the world is unreasonable. And for some people, I think playing the last couple of worlds without save states or a rewind feature would be considered unreasonable too. But regardless of how you get through this game, it's a game that's worth getting through, and you'll find some challenges more enjoyable than others. The secret areas in this game are the shortcuts I mentioned earlier, and a few bonus locations where you can collect some coins. There are a lot of reused assets and straight up level templates throughout the game, and it could get very repetitive defeating Bowser and speaking to Toad after each level. But when you finally defeat the final one, and get the smooch on the cheek from the princess, there's always a sense of accomplishment on the short journey. And while it's not quite as short, Sonic 1's journey also suffers to some extent from the first title in a series syndrome. 6 zones, 3 acts each, with the end of each third act finding you face off against Robotnik himself. Green Hill Zone Act 1 teaches you how to be Sonic. It teaches you about physics, teaches you to keep hold of your rings, teaches you that it's good to go fast. It also teaches you about what it means to die in a 2D platformer. But at this time, it was nothing special to us because that had already been made clear to us from Mario 1. Everything about Green Hill Zone Act 1 is amazing. Everything. It's almost a demo of itself of what Sonic stands for. And sure, Act 2 and 3 might not be as good, but they're no slouches either. It's when you get to the next zone, Marble Zone, that things start to slow down. Literally. The problem is though, if you're a fan of Sonic, you want to go fast. You gotta go fast. But I guess this wasn't fully established yet during the design of Sonic 1. Because if Green Hill Zone taught you of Sonic's speed and tested your reflexes, Marble Zone's sole purpose was to remind you that at the end of the day, Sonic is still a platformer. It's honestly not that bad. A lot of people hate it a lot more than I do. I figured out that if I didn't try to speed through Marble Zone, it was pretty easy. Especially when I played it with a controller instead of touchscreen. But that's the issue most people have with Marble Zone. They don't want to go slow. I mentioned in the Mario section that I'm okay with levels that unfairly punish you when you get closer to the end of the game. I think Marble Zone as a result would have done better as a second last or final stage in the game, where it all of a sudden stops you from speeding and tests your slight bit of platforming you did throughout the game. But unfortunately that's not the case, and as a second zone I can only imagine how many people it turned off from this game altogether. And honestly, it doesn't get that much better, because as you continue throughout the next zones, you find more and more acts that basically feed you into this false sense of security where you think it's okay to go fast, only to rug pull you in the last second and cause you to die. Ultimately, you can get through the game fairly easily if you approach it not as a physics-based speed platformer, but rather as a slow regular platformer. Basically, you need to play Sonic as if he was Mario. And weirdly enough, in order to enjoy the gameplay of Mario 1, you actually need to play it as if it's a Sonic game. Let me explain. Something that's always irked me throughout my life is hearing Sonic fans go on about Mario as if it's this slow 2D platformer that's played as if it was being played by your grandmother or a 4-year-old child. It's not. Not for actual gamers anyway. Mario games are the most enjoyable when you get into the swing of things and you never stop. Not unlike Sonic games. And that goes double for Mario 1, where your control over Mario sees you drop abruptly after a poor jump or ruin your precision platforming if you hesitate and move your hand off the run button. Mario feels heavy in this game. It can easily be chalked down to poor control or game design, and I wouldn't argue if you made that claim, but the enjoyment of Mario 1 comes from not stopping. Your punishment isn't simply death in this game, it's having to speed back up, which is literally what a Sonic game is, or at least what was introduced to Sonic in Sonic 2. Because Sonic 1 is exactly what Sonic fans envision 2D Mario games to be, a slow platformer that, while fun, finds you waiting a lot of times for the stage to allow you to start to go fast again. It's weird, but basically, I like the way Mario 1 plays more than the way Sonic 1 plays because Mario 1 feels more like the best of Sonic's movements, and Sonic 1 plays more like the worst of Mario's level design. Which ultimately means when I compare these two games, I much rather play Mario 1 over Sonic 1. It's funny because I don't even like Mario 1 all that much. The problem is Sonic 1 doesn't offer much in competition outside of Green Hill Zone, and a handful of scattered highlights later on in the game, like the frustrating but good boss fight in Labyrinth Zone, or the much more iconic final boss fight, or the all-around better theming and puzzles in the game. I like Sonic 1, but it fires just a bit too short for me. Both games are also weak when it comes to completion. Mario 1 starts the game over with Beetles instead of Goombas, and honestly, it's barely any different. But then you also have the lost levels to play, and it's honestly such a frustrating and difficult bonus that it brings down the value of the game in this head-to-head. The issue though is that Sonic 1's bonus stages aren't even worth getting through to collect the emeralds. There's virtually no reward of value. If you beat the game, you get to play as Tails alone, or Sonic and Tails, but due to the way the acts are designed, it's not even worth running through the game again with the changing characters. So while you could collect the emeralds to unlock Knuckles in Sonic 1, it doesn't add anything of value except knowing that you're playing as Knuckles. So I won't reward the game for giving you that as a bonus, just like I won't reward Mario for giving you a slightly different player in Luigi in Lost Levels. Mind you, this isn't the case for all of these games going forward. In my next videos, you'll clearly see me discuss the positives of playing through the varying stages with different characters, but for Sonic 1 and Mario 1, it does little to the experience. Ultimately, I wouldn't go for 100% completion in either game. I probably won't even bother playing through the Lost Levels again, and if you haven't done it, you're better off playing Mario Maker anyway. I so wish Mario 1 and All-Stars had the bonus mode in the Game Boy's Deluxe that allows you to collect the lost coins and Yoshi eggs, because then I might have a higher opinion of this game. But I also wish Sonic 1 gave you more of an incentive to collect the emeralds, or even gave you a better bonus stage just so that it's a bit more enjoyable to play. At the end of the day though, when it comes to Mario 1 vs Sonic 1, it comes down to the player control. And I personally enjoy how Mario controls over Sonic in this instance. I totally understand if someone else enjoyed Sonic, but I enjoy Mario more as a Sonic fan. It's when you're able to run through the game with that momentum that you really start to enjoy it. It's the frustration when you mistime a jump and hit a pipe and have to build your speed up again. Green Hill Zone offers more than anything Mario 1 offers, but it's not enough. For me at least. I totally understand if that wasn't the case for you. The funny thing about both Mario 1 and Sonic 1 is they're the worst in the classic series for both games. I don't usually come across anyone who claims either of those games are the best in their series. That usually doesn't start until you get to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Super Mario Bros. 3, which is why I'm going to put those two head to head. But before that, I'm first going to need to cover Super Mario Bros. 2 USA and Sonic CD. Why am I going out of order and making those two games face off? Well, you'll have to find out in my next video. In the meantime, let me know your thoughts on Sonic 1 and Mario 1 in the comments below. And don't forget to like, sub, and visit my Patreon if you're down to support me. Thanks for watching. Dean, out.